from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Tuesday night edition of the program. Happy to be here. Our phone number, if you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation, even if you're in Hawaii and it's drive time, it's still our late night national town hall conversation. And give us a call, 833-4825-337, 833-4-Valdez. And let's see, where do we start? There's a bunch of things to talk about. There always is, right? There's always something to talk about. Biden has announced new protections for illegal immigrants. And this is interesting. I spoke about this on Newsmax over the weekend. And he's doing exactly what Obama did with the Dreamers. This is nothing more than bending the rules so that they could maintain political power or gain political power. This is a very common tactic that I honestly only see Democrats use. I've never seen a Republican, honestly, this is not a defense of Republicans. They do other things, but they don't do this, right? I've never seen Republicans create, they might have a lawsuit. They might go to the Supreme Court. They go through the channels, right? But I've never seen them just change things like Biden, for example. Biden is told by the Supreme Court, you can't do that. He says, oh, okay, then we'll do it anyway. Figures out a way to skirt the Supreme Court and do what he wants. Well, in this situation, he's doing the same thing. Biden has announced that this sweeping reform that they have, that is going to allow 550,000, by his count, so obviously by my count, it's probably going to be double, triple that number, 550,000 people that are in the country currently within the last 10 years to get married and get a visa, which would allow them to get citizenship, residency and citizenship, without ever having to go back home. Now, what's interesting is this is, people have been doing this forever, right? People come, they fall in love legitimately. Others don't fall in love legitimately. But so ultimately, people have been doing this for ages. And over the ages, we've seen people have to go back home once they've gotten their visa. Well, Biden is going to erase that level of the regulation so that people can now just get married and go right to it. In many ways, doing what Democrats have been clamoring about all along, calling for a pathway to citizenship. Anyway, listen to the announcement from Joe Biden.
It doesn't require any fundamental change in our immigration law. There's already a system in place for people we're talking about today. But the process is cumbersome, risky, and it separates families. Under the current process, undocumented spouses of U.S. citizens must go back to their home country, for example, to Mexico, to fill out paperwork and obtain long-term legal status. They have to leave their families in America with no assurance that they'll be allowed back in the United States. So they stay in America, but in the shadows, living in constant fear of deportation without the ability to legally work. All this, even though under the law today, they are eligible for long-term legal status. Today, I'm announcing a common-sense fix to streamline the process for obtaining legal status for immigrants married, to American citizens who lived here for a long time. For those wives or husbands and their children who have lived in America for a decade or more but are undocumented, this action will allow them to file the paperwork for legal status in the United States, allow them to work while they remain with their families in the United States. Let's be clear. This action still requires undocumented spouses to file all required legal paperwork to remain in the United States. It requires them to pass criminal background checks, and it doesn't apply to anyone trying to come here today. It only applies, this action is a better way. It doesn't tear families apart while requiring every undocumented spouse to fulfill their obligations under the law.
It doesn't require them to fulfill their obligations under the law. Tearing families apart. No, it doesn't tear your family apart. It's the current law says that you have to go back to your embassy or consulate to file for your visa. That's all it says. So if you come here, I'm on vacation in the United States. Perfect example, right? Young lady comes from Cuba. Young lady comes from Colombia, wherever. Very attractive. Meets me, Rich Valdez. She says, oh, my God, I love this guy. He's terrific. Best head of hair in talk radio. Super. She falls in love. I am smitten. We decide to get hitched. In every other time in life, she would have to go back home to her country, Colombia or Cuba. I'm going to use Colombia as a better example because Cuba doesn't really allow a lot because they're commies. And file for the visa to come back so that she can be married, etc. Well, Joe Biden has streamlined this process, not by way of law or legislation, no, not using Congress, but through his executive action. And there it is, voila. Now he's fixed a problem, right? The problem is this is going to, it's only going to help a select few people, right? Not everybody has been here for 10 years and is married to or going to be married, but you're going to see an increase in these marriages, and that's exactly the point I'm making, where you'll likely see one in my future, right? I'm probably going to have a line of people after making all these comments of women visiting the country say, come on, marry me, and I don't mean me per se. I mean anybody who is going to be able to give them citizenship and residency. And listen, that doesn't mean that there's not a true love story out there. I believe that can happen all the time. But what I am saying is that this is going to fuel that. Now, for immigration advocates, they're going to say this is legal immigration. This is fixing the broken immigration problem. I don't know that it's necessarily broken. I think when you're doing all of these background checks and all of these things, you're vetting someone, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. And you want to have input from the people in their country so they can go and satisfy whatever obligations they have in their country. Because, again, most of these people are either coming here on a vacation, a visitor visa, and overstaying that visa, or they're coming by way of the border. And I don't think most of them are coming by way of the border. I think most of them are coming on a plane for a vacation, and then they stay. And because they know somebody here or whatever and whatnot. So I think it's a different situation from what we see at the border, but ultimately this, the same end result, right, which is somebody that's in the country and doesn't have the legal status to be here. So what is Biden doing? He's going to, by his count again, 500,000 people. I say that's going to be 3 times or quadruple that amount. I don't know if I'm right or wrong on that, but I can't imagine that there's only 500,000 people in America that are married to Americans or about to be married to Americans. I'm guessing millions are going to get married to Americans now that they know they have to do it by, I think, by this year. So we will keep you up to speed on all of that. I was reading the criteria for this, and I just don't remember the month that it indicated, whether it had to be done by January of 24 or it was July of 24. So I'll refresh myself on that during the break. But either way, I think Biden is full of it on this one. This is nothing more than an election year ploy to Hispanics that he felt like he's losing, because he is. We keep hearing the guys from CNN saying how badly he's losing the Hispanic vote and the black vote because of this most recent border action that he took, is what they're saying. But that's not why. He's losing them because America's unsafe and the economy stinks. Period. The end. So now he's trying to buy votes. This is kind of like the local politician that likes to make sure your street is paved 2 or 3 weeks before Election Day so they can say, hey, look, come on, I got you. Anyway, we're going to continue that conversation as well as all of this lawfare. Does this open up the door for President Obama to become criminally charged? I think it does. We're going to talk about that with the executive director of America Works. America First Works. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
The action I'm announcing today will go into effect later this summer. And by the way, just as was true for the protection of dreamers, the steps I'm taking today are overwhelmingly supported by the American people, no matter what the other team says. In fact, polls show over 70% of Americans support this effort to keep families together.
Now, that's Joe Biden again at the White House, marking the 12th anniversary of DACA today and announcing his own new amnesty package. And, of course, I say this is an election year ploy, but Karine Jean-Pierre, she says, not so fast. That's exactly what it isn't.
How do you respond to Republicans who say this particular move is just an election year stunt?
Look, I'm not here to talk about election year. That's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about the president's policy and why he's doing this, because we have a broken immigration system. The president did this on his first day when he put forth a comprehensive immigration system.
So Joe Biden's using executive action to undo everything that Donald Trump did while he was president to secure the border and strengthen legal immigration in the United States. And now he says that it's Trump that's ripping families apart, even though we know that the imagery that was used by the New York Times and others when they said it was kids in cages, that was all stuff that happened during the Obama-Biden administration. So I want to get to the bottom of this, as well as is it open season on President Obama and other ex-presidents with lawfare to criminally charge former presidents. I think they've put that on the table. So we're going to discuss all of the above with Ashley Hayek. She is the executive director of America First Works. Ashley, welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. So you've heard President Biden, you've heard Karine Jean-Pierre. What's your initial reaction to this, what I'm going to say is an election year stunt?
Well, it's funny because she said, we're here to talk about the policies. Okay, let's talk about the policies. Let's talk about that yesterday an illegal alien was arrested in New York for violently raping a 13-year-old girl at knife point in the middle of the day. Let's talk about that policy. Or let's talk about the mom from Maryland who has 5 children who was raped and murdered by an illegal who was released by Joe Biden. So, let's also talk about, months before a 9-year-old girl and her mother who were brutally attacked in a home invasion. Or how about we talk about all of the innocent lives that have been taken from a fentanyl crisis? There are over 11 million illegals in our country. Many of them are part of MS-13. Many are, violent criminals that were released from their prisons and entering into our country. How about we talk about those families and those policies? Because there is something that's very clear. There's a very distinct difference between what was before, and that was safety, security, ending human trafficking, stopping the drug cartels, and what we're experiencing today. And it is a night and day difference.
Ashley Hayek, I think you make a good point, and this is obviously what is overlooked by the administration, yet they claim to have overwhelming support of 70% of the American people that want to keep families together, and clearly this is misleading. They say that the campaign or the New York Post or those right of center in the media are misleading people when Joe Biden is running around, meandering and wandering and whatnot. But it seems to me what we've all known, the elephant in the room, the media and the administration are not only dishonest, but in many situations, they're just outright lying and hurting Americans with their policies.
Well, no doubt. And you want to talk about keeping families together. How about all of the literally tens of thousands of children that are lost in the country? This administration has lost them. They have no idea where they are. And how about all of the children that were separated and have been recycled as a part of a human trafficking scheme to get criminals across our borders? There's been no conversation about that whatsoever, and it's quite frankly disgusting. This amnesty plan that, Biden has released, it's basically going to lead to another huge surge in migrant crime. It's going to cost taxpayers millions and millions of dollars. Our kids are already being displaced out of their schools. Our public services are completely overwhelmed. The left has defunded our police officers, and now they're not able to handle the crime that's on the streets. You look at places like New York City, and it's just completely overwhelmed. The Social Security is going to be gutted. The Medicare benefits to senior citizens are going to be completely stolen. Services to veterans will be robbed. To fund illegal aliens, it's going to drain the programs that Americans have paid for, and it's wrong. And it's, once again, it just goes to show you this is the Biden administration putting Americans last and illegal aliens first. And it's just, I think people are finally opening their eyes and being able to see through this. And I would love to see that poll, exactly who they talk to, and what those crosstabs look like, to be quite frank.
Yeah, and that seems to be the case whenever we see something that honestly seems to be favoring Biden in one way or another. Is it's always a misrepresented sample or a poll of registered voters, not likely voters, and we see so much of that because I think people, really irrespective of their politics, my most liberal friends. I have a friend; she's a lawyer. She's been a lawyer for Black Lives Matter. That's how far to the left she is. And we had lunch not too long ago, and she told me that she's embarrassed and disgusted with Joe Biden. So when the base, right, and the radical element within your own party is not on board with you, you know you're in bad shape. Yet the campaign obviously has to put their best foot forward, but they seem to try to paint this picture that Biden is okay and he's doing well. But I think everybody knows he's not.
That's right. I think everyone can see right through it, and that's why we're seeing so much support. You know, when the left used lawfare and continues to use lawfare against President Trump, and we see people who have never given to political campaigns, never given to the Trump campaign, donate, money, small dollars, big dollars, Silicon Valley, working class people, I think that's really indicative of where the American people are. When people are having to choose between heating and eating, when people are not able to walk down the street safely, when a mom can't go for a morning jog in Memphis, Tennessee without getting murdered, or, Laken Riley in Georgia going on her morning jog and being killed by an illegal alien, I think people are really starting to wake up to the fact that these policies are not good for the American people, and it's time to bring America First policies back.
Folks, we're on with Ashley Hayek. She's the executive director of America First Works, and we're discussing everything that's going on in America at night. And part of that is, of course, Biden's announcement with respect to his amnesty policy, where I think we're going to see lots and lots of weddings. People are going to be going to the chapel for sure. And, of course, this weaponization of the legal system and the use of lawfare against one's political opponents, in this case, against President Trump. And we're going to dig into that straight ahead right after this. Keep it locked right here. Rich Valdez, our guest, Ashley Hayek, executive director of America First Works. Don't go anywhere.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
The reality is that Republicans' sort of brazen decision to endorse the justice system's decision-making when it convicts a Democrat, like the president's son, and decision to call the system rigged when it convicts a Republican, like the former president, is a real worrying advertisement from Republicans that they are planning to potentially use the justice system as a mechanism to target Trump's political opponents. Listen, I accept the jury's decision with respect to Hunter Biden. I accept the jury's decision as it is respected to Donald Trump. But Republicans seem to only believe the justice system is working right when it convicts Democrats and believe that it's illegitimate when it convicts Republicans. And that, to me, is a signal that they may be very open to using the justice system as a political tool to persecute opponents if they get power again.
That's Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat from Connecticut, saying that exactly what the Democrats are doing to Trump is what Trump is going to do to them, targeting political opponents. And I think Trump has reiterated time and time again that that is not his position. He's here to make America great again. I want to bring our guest back in. Ashley Hayek is Executive Director of America First Works. Ashley, what do you think of Senator Chris Murphy's comments a few days ago?
Well, I think it's funny how they have a problem when, it happens to them, but they have no problem doing it to Joe Biden's political opponent. This was never about President Trump and what he did or did not do. This was about who he is, and he's the leading candidate for president, and the Democrats have made it very clear they will stop at absolutely nothing to try and prevent him from getting to the White House again. Merrick Garland and his mob are waging full-on lawfare. They are using our legal system as a weapon to pursue their own political schemes. But, it's interesting because President Trump always said, they're coming after you, I'm just in the way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you
That's
look
right.
at what happened with the 81-year-old Army veteran who went to the wrong protest, the pro-life dad who was praying outside the abortion center, the parents who showed up at the school board meetings and they're being labeled domestic terrorists, the Catholic Latin churches that are being investigated for being extremists. The examples go on and on and on about how the Biden's Department of Justice, the doctor in Texas who started exposing all of the transgender procedures on minor children, the DOJ is completely going after anybody who opposes their political viewpoint. And you know what? What this legislator is saying is that that's okay that they do that. But you know what? He shouldn't come after the Democrat Party because then it's political. He shouldn't come after Obama or Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton for, Benghazi, Burisma, anything else, because that's political. But this isn't political. What they've done to the American people, that's not political. What, Alvin Bragg and Letitia James and Fani Willis and Tanya Chutkan and Judge Merchan have all done to President Trump, that's not political. Baseless, no crimes, not political. But coming after the American people, that then it becomes a problem. That's outrageous.
I agree. And in the same breath, you've got those on the left and the left within the media, the left within the White House, all saying the same thing, that it is the folks on the right that are misleading and selectively editing videos. And Biden wasn't really lost. These are deep fake videos. And I knew once they started creating these deep fakes and AI became a thing, that they would say that anytime something crazy happened that they didn't want to admit to, they would just say it's a deep fake. There is a clip that I have. It's a really short one. Joe Scarborough this morning on MSNBC, his show, The Morning Joke, he says that the RNC is lying and that most mainstream media outlets are in on the lies as well. Listen to this.
Yeah, maybe the Biden team's going to have to work harder. Maybe Democrats are going to have to work harder. Maybe people who actually like American democracy are going to work harder. But they just have to work harder and get the word out that these people are lying. Not only is the RNC lying, but also mainstream media outlets are now all in on the lies.
Don't believe your lying eyes. Joe Biden is not sitting in invisible chairs, shaking hands with the Easter Bunny, doing an about face, wandering off. None of that's really happening. Ashley Hayek.
Looking like he's pooping his pants, falling down, steps, trying to get on an airplane, falling off his bicycle. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And quite frankly, again, like the American people see it, but we've known. I mean, we talk about the deep fakes or whatever, but go back to, big tech, or go back to the agents who wrote the letter, the 50 agents who wrote the letter, saying that
the intelligence officers.
Exactly, the intelligence officers. I mean, there are so many examples where the establishment has worked against the American people. Big tech has worked against the American people. Big media has worked against the American people. Like, we see it time and time again. And this goes back to the, Russian collusion hoax. They want to feed you a narrative, and they think the American people are too stupid to see through it. But I really believe that the American people are waking up. This is a revival for our country. Every 4 years, we say this is the most important election of our lifetime, but this truly is the most important election of our lifetime. We have so much on the line and so much with our freedom. We have to save the republic, and it's going to be a matter of just exposing the real truth and really just being able to point back to the policies. We have two executives that have been, tried and tested, and we see the results. And it's so interesting to me because under President Trump, he had an amazing economy, thriving economy. Obviously, when COVID hit, things changed. But what was so funny is the Biden administration, they said, well, we inherited this. However, they claimed the victory of the rebound that President Trump created coming out of COVID. But then when they tanked our economy again, they then said it was inherited. You can't have it both ways. And that's what people are beginning to realize, is that they're talking out of both sides of their mouth.
Folks, we're on with Ashley Hayek. She is the executive director of America First Works. And straight ahead, I want to get her opinion on the latest thing that is being targeted by the left. We talked about it yesterday when Joe Biden announced that he will likely be facing the biggest election of his career because this election hinges upon the Supreme Court. According to Joe Biden, there are 2 Supreme Court nominees that are likely to happen in the next administration, and that's what this boils down to. So obviously, cue the left. The attack on the Supreme Court is afoot, and we're going to talk about that when we return. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
So glad to be on your show, Rich. It's just an amazing broadcast that I hope the rest of America listens to every day.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
The next president is likely to have 2 new Supreme Court nominees. 2 more. He's already appointed 2 that have been very negative in terms of the rights of individuals. The Supreme Court has never been as out of kilter as it is today. I mean, never. I taught constitutional law for 9 years. This guy knows more about it than most. Look, the fact of the matter is that this has never been a court that's been this far out of step.
That's Joe El Baboso Biden speaking yesterday. And I think I played this clip yesterday, but I wanted to play it again because he makes that clarion call. I think we're going to have to go and appoint 2 new Supreme Court, which I don't even see it being a thing. The only reason it's a thing is because they're coming after Clarence Thomas and they're coming after Sam Alito, right? All of a sudden, he can't fly what type of flag he wants to fly. If his flag's upside down, it's the end of the world. Clarence Thomas can't have rich friends and go on vacation. This is truly a problem that's being created by the left. But once he does that, Joe Biden's friends, the left within the media, they go right to doing what they're supposed to do. And if it's not Joe Scarborough on The Morning Joke, it's his late-night colleague Rachel Maddow on The View, of all places. She decided to say this. Check this out.
John Roberts is probably the most important person in America right now when it comes to whether we're going to keep our system of government. Because Trump's involved in all this criminal stuff, and so he and his movement and the whole Republican Party, I mean, the Speaker, the House, all of them are saying the American legal system is corrupt and rigged and we ought to get rid of it. That's not great. What do you have if you don't have a legal system anymore? Yeah. But on the other hand, then you've got everybody trying to stand up for the legal system, say it's not rigged, it's legitimate, we need to support it. But the Supreme Court is flagrantly corrupt.
Yeah, that's right.
And so John Roberts, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court,
corrupt?
There is flagrant corruption. If you think if you had, so I work at MSNBC. There was a member of my family who's lobbying the White House chief of staff saying overturn this election result. You think they'd let me cover that election result? Right. Let alone give a binding judicial ruling on that election result? I mean, the blatant corruption of a couple of these Supreme Court justices is John Roberts' problem. He's the Chief Justice and he has to police it to save his court and to save the legal system.
That's Rachel Maddow. What I find so interesting, and I really do find interesting here, is that you've got people like me and many that agree with me that are out here saying this is lawfare, it's judicial tyranny, we've got all these rogue judges, right? Basically saying the system of justice is corrupt. And now Rachel Maddow says the system of justice is corrupt. We finally agree with the left on the corruption in the legal system. Ashley Hayek.
Well, it's funny. The leftist billionaire George Soros has funneled literally millions of dollars to, Arabella advisors, demand justice, to basically challenge the Supreme Court's integrity because they don't like its rulings and they don't like its conservative members. And that leads to the idea, and what the left really wants to do is pack the court and end our constitutional rights. And if you think about the scary part is it is so critical not just to make sure we secure the White House, but to make sure that we secure the House and the Senate to block any sort of change by the left to try and expand the Supreme Court. We will be in such deep trouble because here's what we know about the left. If they can't win by the rules, they try to change the rules. We saw it in the 2020 election. We saw it in the courts in 2022 when there was challenges to their unconstitutional decisions. And there is no doubt that this is a massive threat to the left, especially if you think about at any moment Trump's immunity case will be coming down the pike. All of these major decisions they do lean conservative. And so they're going to try and do whatever they can to manipulate to get their way, as they do with all things, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's why we have to have these conversations and have people like you out there doing the work that you're doing. Let everybody know how they can, keep track of everything that's going on at America First Works and a little bit about what you're doing right now, what you're working on.
Sure. So our number one priority right now is grassroots mobilization, door knocking, phone calls, text messaging, the whole nine. So if anybody is interested in getting involved, we're at americafirstworks.com. You can go to our X handle or social media. It's America, the number one, ST Works, whereas it's spelled out on the website. But we are knocking on doors. We are focused on 9 battleground states. We're trying to save America, and we have an amazing partnership with different groups across the country. But it's really, this is the year. This is the year where we lay it all out on the line.
Yeah, there's no alternative, right? I can't imagine another 4 years of Joe Biden. Honestly, I think a lot of Democrats can't imagine another 4 years of Joe Biden. And all the people that will talk to me but won't come on the air with me, that oppose my politics, they're all thinking I don't know what goes on either. I asked them, do you think somebody else steps in? Do they switch out the candidates? They're like, I hope so. but nobody believes that's going to happen. So we'll see how it goes. Ashley Hayek, I want to thank you for being with us. And Godspeed to you and all the work you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
You bet. All right, folks, we continue our conversation with some of your calls and more when we return.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. He's brown, he's bald, and he's breaking it down. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And, part of our conversation with Ashley Hayek, she mentioned something that went down, and we're going to talk about it in a little bit. A remarkable story, a brutal story of a 13-year-old girl. It was actually 2 girls, and they were tied up. One of them was raped by this guy, 25 years old, illegal immigrant from Ecuador. And he was captured by his community after the police put the wanted signs up. And honestly, I think they went easy on him. They roughed him up a little bit, held him down till the cops came, but he's alive and well, walking on his 2 feet. His face doesn't look bashed in. He really got, in my opinion, the white glove treatment. We're going to get into that a little bit later, but I want to get to your calls on Biden, on the tragic passing of baseball legend Willie Mays, and so many other headlines that we have tonight. Let's go to Logan, Utah, KVNU, and check in with Doug. Hey, Doug, you're on with Rich Valdez. Welcome.
Hey, Rich. It's good to talk to you, man.
Likewise, sir.
Yeah, I don't know why anybody in the right mind would even listen to Rachel Madcow. I've seen her once or twice, and she just made me sick. I couldn't stand listening to her one bit. She just doesn't make any sense.
She's
at all.
something else.
Yeah, she is. And then Mr. Biden, the president.
Right.
I don't think his name is Joe. I think it should be Gomer Pyle Biden or Barney Fife Biden or even Mr. Magoo Biden. But that's, Joe's too nice for him. So
I like Mr. Magoo.
Yeah. And one more thing. He's always saying no one's above the law. Well, what about him? All the things he's done with China, all the money that his family's taken, give me a break,
Yeah, things are definitely out of control, and I'm hoping that this election will be the turning point, the tipping point for many Americans, where they say, you know what, enough is enough, and hopefully all of the stuff that, you were just talking about and we talk about every single day on this program, hopefully that stuff will be top of mind for so many people when they go and vote. That's all we can hope for. Doug, big shout out to everybody listening in Logan, Utah on KVNU. Love to get calls from Utah. Always happy to hear from our buddies in Utah. So thank you. Let us continue. KBOI, let's go to our buddy Paul, Boise, Idaho. Go right ahead, sir.
Thanks for taking my call, Rich.
Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, and chips at tea. I was Walter Winchell. My heart goes out to the family of Willie Mays. I was fortunate. I lived a 2-hour drive from my driveway to the Candlestick Park in San Francisco to catch a Giants game. And he was an innovator. You guys got him first in New York, and I bet you were sorry to see him go when he played for the Giants at the Polo Grounds. But he was an innovator. He actually caught the ball in a basket, like he was catching a basket in his stomach area along the belt line. So he would be out there and somebody would hit the ball. And in Candlestick Park, the wind blew from the ocean. And so it would knock the ball up in the air. And then you could walk underneath it just about to get to it. And Willie Mays would walk right underneath it like a basket and catch it right in his stomach. Something I'd never seen before. I'll never forget when I saw it the first time. And, I think he finished with, the total was 660 home runs.
Wow.
But, yeah, and the problem was, like I said, the wind blew in from the ocean and center field was wide open. So he could crush one, 500 and some odd feet, and it would die on the warning track in somebody's glove out in center field.
Wow. An absolute legend, Willie Mays was. Paul in Boise, Idaho, thank you for the call. I really appreciate it. Big shout out to everybody in Idaho, KBOI in the building. And we're going to continue. Straight ahead, we're going to get into a lot of conversation. Of course, we're going to talk about this rapist that was captured in New York. But before we do that, we're going to talk about lies that are told by liberal teachers. The indoctrination continues. That's coming up next. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Feel free to give us a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ, and welcome to our late night national town hall conversation. Happy to be with you this second hour of our Tuesday night broadcast. And some of the headlines, Joe Biden has announced new protections for illegal immigrants as if he hadn't done enough. Joe El Baboso Biden strikes again. Lori Lightfoot, I don't know if you remember her. She's now going to be teaching college classes. That's exactly what colleges need, right? More Lori Lightfoot in their lives. We've got a heat wave going on, and maybe I'll talk about that a little bit later. And there was another one here that I wanted to get into. It was kind of like a greatest hits because there were so many things that happened in the last couple of months, and so much of them had to do with higher education and education overall. I think we've seen so much in the way of school boards and parents that were, given threat tags and labeled violent domestic extremists or domestic terrorists because they oppose school boards. You've got college kids that have taken over campuses along with paid protesters that some say don't exist, but there was a whole story on it in the LA Times and in the Wall Street Journal. And you see all of this, I'm going to call it malfeasance that's been going on. And it all stems from the hippie radicals, right, that were once indoctrinated on college campuses and taught to hate America instead of love America. They were taught that America's an oppressive, evil place in many ways. And, the Howard Zinns of the world and his acolytes are now ruling the roost, right? Now they're the leaders of the pack. And we're seeing exactly how that's unfolding. And it doesn't look good for America. Well, I want to get into that a little bit because I think, that's a perpetual problem. What is the media and what is indoctrination in the classroom are two issues that I think we tackle on a daily basis, but we need to continue tackling nonetheless. So I want to bring in Wilfred Reilly, Associate Professor of Political Science at Kentucky State University. He's written a book, Lies My Liberal Teacher Told Me, Debunking the False Narratives Defining America's School Curricula. Professor, welcome.
Good to be on the show.
So let's talk about this. I know, and I worked in higher ed for a little while. I know for a lot of people, it's publish or perish. And you've published this title, Lies My Liberal Teacher Told Me, Debunking the False Narratives and Defining America's School Curricula. I would imagine that was not very popular with a lot of your colleagues. Why did you write this book?
Yeah, well, there's kind of a joke there, like that might make you more likely to perish and all that. Although, I have tenure, so I should be pretty safe. But I wrote this book because I think it actually deals with an important problem in society right now, which is large chunks of America's future leaders being taught to hate the country. And that's not kind of conservative business class propaganda. It's a real issue. Mm-hmm. If you look at the number of Americans that think that socialism is preferable to capitalism or that major allies like Israel should no longer exist, those figures are absolutely staggering. I believe the figure 41% among both white and African-American kids in the USA, 41% of high school students think the USA was the only country that ever had slaves. So we're teaching people this sort of ridiculous negative propaganda. We may be the only society in history to lie to people and tell them that their country was worse than it was. So I wanted to warn against some of that. I wanted to push back against some of that. And I am a pretty good social scientist. I teach at State U, Kentucky State. I teach our stats classes. And I wanted to look at why this was. What's the incentive that would make a society or a huge chunk of the population in a society do something so suicidal?
Well, now you got me all excited to start to tell me how unpack that and tell us what you came up with.
Well, I think the answer to the psychological question, although I'm a political scientist, not a psychologist, but the answer is that America is a very free country. So we are not inoculated against the viruses that, say, China, the Arabs, so on, probably have less trouble with. So in the USA, you can openly be an opponent of the country. And I mean, one of the things that happened in higher education, which I talk about in chapter 4 of this book, which has a provocative title, the hippies were wrong, the sexual revolution was terrible for feminists, we could have won Vietnam, but which I think makes a lot of fairly valid points. The organized rebels in the country, I mean, if you're talking about the Weathermen, SDS, people like Bill Ayers, who's also a tenured professor right now, these people in a pretty concentrated fashion decided to move into, buy in, don't sell out, move into the quote-unquote square world, especially in secondary education, higher education, and media, and see if they could influence our system toward their goals. But unfortunately, one of their goals, at least at the start, was the destruction of our system. So kind of last line here, but there's an article you can find on a website called Econ Live, kind of wonky data resource, but called The Prevalence of Marxism in Academia. And at least in the social sciences, at least the last time I looked, 18% of college professors identify as Marxists, identify as communists. And that's a remarkable statistic. I'm not saying everyone in the classroom is a communist or anything like that, but half of 1% of all Americans identify as commies, and we're at 36 times that. So it takes some effort to get to that point.
Wow. That's a lot. And listen, nothing that you're saying is surprising me. It's just rare that I hear it from somebody who's a tenured professor. Folks, we're on with Wilfred Reilly. He's Associate Professor of Political Science at Kentucky State University. He's the author of the book, Lies My Liberal Teacher Told Me, Debunking the False Narratives Defining America's School Curricula. And, Professor, I find this remarkable. What do you think their impetus is? Is it just truly that they bought into this? They believe in the oppressor versus the oppressed narrative? Was it the Marxists that came before them 100 years ago, laying the foundation? How did they take the bait, hook, line, and sinker?
Well, I think that this is actually a paradigm in political science called the attitudinal model. So in the whole thing with the attitudinal model, there's a famous book by two guys named Siegel and Spaeth, came out in 1992. And what they found, it's profoundly cynical and funny, but you can predict the behavior of what they called a solo leader about 95% of the time by looking at a very few things like their political background, what party they're a member of. So they look at how the Supreme Court justices vote in different court cases, and betting sites have picked up on this over the years, and they find that you can predict how Scalia is going to vote or how he was going to vote. It's not particularly surprising, but what Thomas is going to do, what Kagan's going to do. But I think that the point I'm making here is that in the United States, there are a bunch of different perspectives on why people and groups succeed and fail. So there's kind of the Ibram Kendi racialist perspective, which is that if you see a gap in performance between any two groups of people, blacks and whites, whites and Asians, men and women, that's due to racism. This is a little dated today, but there's what's called the hereditarian perspective. At least at the individual level, it's all genetic. Then there's my take, which is culturalism. Some people obviously work harder, train harder, have better families, so on, than others. But those perspectives break down really strikingly along not just social class, but political lines. So almost all left-wing Democrats and socialists are also racialists. Blah, blah, blah. But what you have in academia is a really weird situation where almost everyone falls on that end of the political scale. So in higher ed, don't want to exaggerate this, but 85 to 90% of the academic professors are on the left. And that means that almost all of them have this one view of the world. And when you ask, do they believe it sincerely? I think they do, just like I believe in my view of the world sincerely. I believe that if you work hard and compete, you can move on to a successful upper middle class life in the USA pretty easily. The issue isn't that you have lefties in academia, it's that you really don't have anything else. And that's the result of this power struggle that was won a while ago. And the question now with academia, with the media, so on, is what to do. How do you get that back to normal?
Well, we'll discuss that, at least your thoughts and musings on it when we return. Folks, we're on with Wilfred Reilly, Associate Professor of Political Science at Kentucky State University. He's the author of the book, Lies My Liberal Teacher Told Me, Debunking the False Narratives Defining America's School Curricula. And I got to tell you, this sounds like an amazing read. I would definitely get a couple of copies of it, one for yourself and one to give to somebody who might enjoy it as well. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Rich Valdez, who, again, will do a fine job, and I know you'll enjoy listening to him.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
White people like us should apologize to black people for the color of our skin or systematic racism?
Yes. Like, it's not just like bad people are racist, like all people are racist, and that racism is like in our genes.
How do you change it if it's in your genes?
By becoming aware of it and becoming aware of how uncomfortable it is to like be like, yeah, I'm f***ing racist, like just innately born racist.
That is Will Witt from PragerU doing a Man on the Street interview with a woman that says that white people, and if I read the transcript, she says white people don't even know that they're racist because they're born racist. And that kind of goes to what we were talking about. We're discussing the book, Lies My Liberal Teacher Told Me, Debunking the False Narratives Defining America's School Curricula. Professor Wilfred Reilly, you heard this clip of audio. I'm sure it's no surprise to you, but how do you react to that?
I mean, I think it's just crazy nonsense. I mean, first of all, in terms of the actual behavior itself, I mean, I value myself and my dignity amorally a lot more than I value, you know, the minor guilt I'd feel around not doing that, even if I believed in this bizarre voodoo. But also, like, extending that logically, then all men would have to apologize to all women, all upper middle class black people would have to apologize to all poor people, and so on down the line. The claim is the claim itself is just utterly nonsensical. But more importantly, the underlying definition that it rests on is also crazy. So racism is one of the simplest things in the world to understand. I mean, in political science, we measure it with a one-sentence question that asks about dislike of whites or blacks or whatever. Racism is just external outgroup prejudice. We don't have time in my discipline for all this junk because we have to measure across 172 different countries. But one of the things that quote-unquote woke people do is spend a lot of time trying to philosophically complicate really simple ideas. So the core idea of kind of Ibram Kendi-style wokeness is that anytime you see a gap in performance between two groups of people, I think I said this already, that is itself evidence of bigotry. So the idea is that all white people must be racist because black people trail whites in about 80% of competitions in the United States. And that is what this woman is saying that she should apologize for. So, I mean, to me, this is wrong on every level. Like, first of all, that's bizarre behavior. Everyone would have to do this. All men certainly would have to do this. But also, I think the definition of racism itself is incorrect. And there actually, by the way, is a real social science response to that theory that blacks and whites, and you don't need to go to genetic racism to respond to it either. The response is simply that blacks and whites differ in terms of, you know, age and the region where we live, social class, a dozen other things. And if you adjust for those things, the gaps that are attributed to racism go away. But woke people seem really uninterested in doing that because the whole point is guilting you.
Right, exactly. And I read that, honestly, in a paper written by some Marxists on a website, Marxist.org. And that's exactly what they wrote about it, how they were going to guilt people. And they wrote it like 50 years ago. Folks, we're on with Professor Wilfred Reilly. Now, you talk about a number of lies. We won't be able to get into all of them. But some of the ones I see here, Native Americans were just peaceful people that spent all day dancing and making love. Tell us about some of these lies and how they are perpetuated.
Yeah, that was my favorite chapter title. Native Americans were peaceful people who spent all day dancing and making love. That actually refers to the U.S. government's Native American curriculum, which reads like, a screen drop from Pocahontas from Walt Disney. I mean, literally stuff like the sky was full of birds, the lakes were full of fish, never was a hand raised in anger. In reality, Native Americans were just people. They were no better and no worse than the white incomers they fought. Many of them were highly civilized, like the Aztecs and Incas, but those peoples were exceptionally brutal. Others lived in, frankly, a barbarian state of existence, and like people in that state throughout history, the Vikings and so on, they were also pretty warlike. So I just go through the actual descriptions that the whites and natives had of one another, and kind of counter the idea that there was this one-sided intentional genocide by actually describing how these wars would have occurred. I mean, the whole idea of going on the warpath, really for either side, was very real. So as we just saw with Palestine and Israel, if someone strikes across your border and kills 100 people, you're going to retaliate and there's going to be a war. And this pattern between white settlers and Native American Indians, with one side or the other committing an atrocity, went on for nearly 400 years. And I mean, obviously, many of the great tribes remain today on sizable reservations, making up 2% of the United States. But I talk about that. I talk about the extreme violence of the era before the whites got here, Aztec cannibalism, human sacrifice. I give some praise to the natives where that's due. I mean, the Iroquois, so on down the line. But I try to contrast reality with sort of the Disneyfied fantasy that is so often presented, like we conquered paradise, that type of nonsense.
Right. Folks, the book is Lies My Liberal Teacher Told Me, Debunking the False Narratives Defining America's School Curricula. And Professor, tell everybody how they can keep up to speed on your scholarship, the work that you're putting out there. How do they get the book, and how do they keep in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way to keep in touch with me is just to search me on any engine. I'm Wilfred Reilly. It's WILFRED REILLY. I appear to be shadow banned on Twitter for some reason, but if you do that, my X account will pop up immediately. My kind of dinky website, linked to the school website, but my writings, without false modesty, my books have done pretty well. This book is probably going to be a bestseller on Amazon. You'll see that. Hate, Crime, Hoax, Taboo, my other two books. And, I'm at that X-list or, D-list level of celebrity where I'll engage with you, banter with you online. So I encourage people to reach out and get in touch.
Sounds good, folks. Make sure you check them out and grab a copy of the book. Again, the title, Lies My Liberal Teacher Told Me, Debunking the False Narratives Defining America's School Curricula. Professor Wilfred Reilly, Associate Professor of Political Science at Kentucky State University. I want to thank you for being with us. It goes without saying, you are a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot, and I thank you for staying up late with us tonight.
Oh, you as well. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. Godspeed, sir. And, folks, straight ahead, we continue. We continue with more conversation. We're also going to get the scoop on this lawsuit. Apparently, somebody sued the LA school district over a vaccine mandate and won. Took them a few years, but they just scored a big victory, so we're going to talk about that. And, of course, at the top of the hour, it's Open Phone America. 833-4-VALDEZ is the number. Get in while you can. I'm Rich Valdez.
No hair, no care, and live on the air, it's Rich Valdez.
Politicization of science is dangerous, but it's not a new thing.
Right.
This has happened in the past. You've dealt with it in the past. Have you seen anything like the way it is now, though? Because certainly just a few days ago, your testimony down in Washington, D.C. made headlines for the hostility that you received.
Right.
Is this, even for your long and storied career and being involved with all these politicians, does this seem like something new to you?
Quite new and disturbing. Back when I first became director of the Institute, which was, I had been director for almost 40 years. In the beginning, there was always politics. There was people of different ideology. There was center left, center right. They disagreed, and they, sometimes would argue with each other. But at the end of the day, there was civility and respect for each other. What we're seeing now is what you had mentioned, Stephen. It's vitriol and pure hostility. So I would get questioned in a very strict, pushing way, maybe back in other administrations. But at the end of the hearing, they would come over to you and say, good job, sorry that we had to be tough with our questionings, but, we want to get to the right place. Now it's pure attack, which is totally different. It's just, I believe, a reflection of the profound degree of divisiveness in the country, which is very destructive.
That, of course, is Dr. Anthony Fauci. He was on The Late Show yesterday with Stephen Colbert, and the Fauchster, as I like to call him, was complaining about the politicization of science and how disturbing it is to him. And I would say it's disturbing to me, too, the way that he has politicized science for his benefit and weaponized it against us, the people. And we've seen that on more than one occasion, whether it was the power grabs they took during COVID or allowing abuelitas, right, grandmas, to die by themselves because of their crazy policies. And schools that were shut down. I remember my daughter, who was a very social little girl, and was, in effect, kicked out of school, thrown online, didn't go well for her. Nobody likes to be in isolation. At least those who don't like isolation don't like isolation. And it was just such a difficult time. And some people fight back. And some of the people that fight back are folks like Leslie Manookian. She is president and founder of the Health Freedom Defense Fund. And that's a nonprofit. They seek to rectify health injustice through education and advocacy and legal challenges to unjust mandates, laws, and policies that undermine our health freedoms and human rights. Leslie Manookian, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. It's an honor to be with you tonight.
Likewise, thanks. And I know that you recently scored a victory in court. It had to do with the LA School District. Tell us a little bit about the background, what the case was about exactly, and how you scored that victory.
I absolutely will. Can I just make a comment about Fauci, though?
Sure, please.
Listening to that intro just makes my blood boil.
Well, that's why we play those, to get you in the mood.
Yeah. Well, I'm in the mood, let me tell you. The real issue is that because of the accessibility of information today, Americans are more educated about the truth and about the weaponization of science than they ever have been. And so what he's bemoaning is the fact that he can't control the narrative the way that he used to, that there are people who know what he's doing, how he's lying, how he's manipulating science, how completely corrupted our federal health agencies have become, and they're pushing back. And he's now in the fire in a way that he's never been because Americans are waking up. And I don't know if you're a soccer fan at all, but, there's a term, an own goal. If you ask me, COVID was the biggest own goal, meaning scoring against yourselves, that these federal health agencies and Fauci and these people have ever committed, because they woke more people up to the, manipulation of us, of public opinion, of the science that's existed for a long time, but that people had never realized. And it's an amazing thing. So in some ways, it's actually really fantastic because more Americans are awake today and aware and skeptical than they've ever been about people like him. And so anyway, I just have to say that because I've been following this issue for more than 20 years. I made a documentary on vaccines, an award-winning documentary on vaccines called The Greater Good that was released in 2011. And I have been smeared, defamed, deplatformed, isolated. I've had all sorts of things happen, censored. It's incredible, and it's been going on for a long time. But now more people are aware of it. So anyway, I'll just say that, and now I'll address what you wanted. Would you have me on the show?
No, well, I wanted both, so I'm happy that you took on the Fauchster head on.
Yeah, the Fauchster. I love that. I hadn't heard that. I think it's great. So what happened is that, of course, once these experimental injections were fast-tracked, because that's what happened, then the government and many state entities and, of course, corporations started mandating them. And I had founded Health Freedom Defense Fund in anticipation of this because I just knew where this was going, having been researching this for over 20 years. And so when, at the beginning of 2020, I knew what was going to happen, I started Health Freedom Defense Fund, and we were ready to roll already suing in early 2021. And California Educators for Medical Freedom, a coalition of employees, mostly from the Los Angeles Unified School District, the nation's second largest school district, came to us and said, they're going to mandate the shot. We don't want to take it. Can you help us? And so we sued them first in March of 2021. And the following day, they rescinded their mandate. LAUSD rescinded their mandate.
Wow.
And yeah, it was fantastic. And they said, oh, it wasn't really a mandate. It was just a recommendation. And, you know, people can test if they want. But they knew it's because it was illegal to mandate a product that was emergency use authorized, because EUA products carry with them the right to accept or refuse them. And then what happened was the case made its way through the court. This is in the summer, July 27th of 2021. And the district court dismissed the case, saying that the case was no longer ripe, that basically it was moot because LAUSD had rescinded the mandate. LAUSD represented to the court that they didn't have a mandate and were not intending to mandate the shot. And then 17 days after they got the case dismissed, they mandated the shot.
Wow.
Which is just, I mean, it's unconscionable to most human beings, right, to behave like this, to literally deceive the court in that manner.
Yeah.
But they did.
Very shady.
It's unbelievable. But this backstory is important because the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals recognized that the school district has been trying to manipulate the jurisdiction of the court, and that's why they slapped them very hard. Mm-hmm. So we filed another lawsuit in November of 2021 with all of these employees of LAUSD. They fired over 500 of them. They displaced more than another 500. They forced them into early retirement. They put them on unpaid leave. They took away their pensions, their benefits. I mean, it was horrible what they do. And this is after the Fauci and CDC had actually told Americans that the shots don't stop transmission or infection. That happened in late July, early August of 2021.
Right, and that was after they said it would initially, and then they had to backtrack on it.
Of course. I mean, they had been telling us from the very beginning, oh, it's 100% effective, then it's 95, and then it's 90, then 80, and then, went down and down and down. But in late July, early August of 2021, they issued guidance instructing employers that they should not treat vaccinated and unvaccinated employees disparately because the shots don't stop transmission or infection. Okay? And so, they lied to the court. We file again, and then that case makes its way through the court system. We have an incredible, fiery oral argument I forgot. The district court, again, the same court, dismissed the case and said that the shots serve a public health purpose, and therefore, under a lawsuit from 1905 called Jacobson versus Massachusetts, they can be mandated. And we appealed the case, and then we had oral argument in September of 2023 in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and the school district got skewered. I mean, just eviscerated by the bench. They couldn't believe. They were aghast. They literally said, "We are floored. I am shocked. I can't believe you have this mandate in place still."
That they said, we dropped the case, and then they went and put the mandate in?
No, they didn't. They didn't do that until we won the hearing, until we got the ruling last week. So first, they get skewered in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals oral argument in September of 2023. They get skewered. And the judges were saying, your policy is irrational. This makes no sense. This is shocking and all this. And that very day, September 14th of 2023, the school district superintendent contacted the board and said, we need to rescind the mandate. Okay? This is a repeat of behavior. 12 days after that, they rescinded the mandate. So twice, when they faced harsh questioning by a court or basically adverse litigation, they rescinded their mandate. That is the textbook definition of voluntary cessation in order to evade review, judicial review. And that's illegal. That's illegal. So when we got the ruling 9 days ago, they actually said this case is not moot. And it's not moot because the school district has been manipulating the jurisdiction of the court and should not be given the benefit of the doubt. They should be given no benefit of the doubt, in fact.
Wow.
Isn't that incredible?
That is. Stay right there. Leslie Manookian, president and founder of Health Freedom Defense Fund. We're talking about her big, decisive win over LA Unified and how shady they are. I had no idea how shady they were. And I had a suspicion, but now I know. We're coming right back. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, familia, welcome back. Amigos, we continue our conversation. We're listening in intently here, finding out that the LA Unified School District has established a pattern of behavior that circumvents the jurisdiction of the court. And that's why Leslie Manookian was able to score this decisive victory. Let's continue. Leslie Manookian.
Thanks, Rich. So the school district manipulates the court. The court says this case is not moot, refuses to dismiss because LAUSD had argued that the case should be dismissed as moot. And but then the court went way further. The court specifically said that on the merits, so that was like a procedural issue, on the merits, that this case is not moot because the lawsuit from 1905, a Supreme Court case that they used to justify the mandate, doesn't
Jacobson.
That's Jacobson, exactly, that it doesn't extend to forced medical treatment for the benefit of the recipient. So we've been told, well, for 119 years, vaccination mandates have been justified on the basis of Jacobson, because Jacobson found that it was all decided about the smallpox vaccine, and the smallpox vaccine was believed to stop transmission and infection. But Jacobson never said that you could condition employment on vaccination or that you could force a needle into someone's arm or anything. It just said that you could pay a fine. But this case is so huge because it's the first time in 119 years that Jacobson has been narrowed. And the court said that Jacobson does not justify forced medical treatment for the benefit of the recipient. So this is very, very big because now this is controlling law in the entire
But I
Ninth
thought that was the
Circuit.
whole purpose of Jacobson, was to force medical treatment.
But
Isn't that
for
the whole case?
benefit of the here's the thing. No, the whole reason for Jacobson was that they argued that there's a public health benefit.
So the
because
benefit for the
vaccine
public at
was supposed
large.
Exactly. But in this case, we argued that the shots don't stop transmission or infection, that natural immunity is real and must be recognized by the courts, and that Jacobson doesn't apply. And the court agreed with us. And it's the first time in 119 years that a court, an appellate court no less, said, you know what? Jacobson is being misapplied, and this has to stop. And so this is the first time we're putting a dent in Jacobson, and that's why it's so important, because if they can force you to take a medical intervention for no reason, then they can force you to do anything, and you're not really free. I mean, we're not. We're literally we're subjects. We're chattel, essentially. And I don't think any of us want to live in there and in that kind of world. And the other thing is Jacobson is from 1905, when I couldn't vote, when Jim Crow laws were still in place, and then when the Supreme Court thought that it was acceptable to sterilize a woman who they thought was unintelligent and not intelligent enough to have children. So why are we allowing a lawsuit from that era to still control conduct and behavior today. In this case, what the court ruled is the first time that Jacobson has been reined in a little bit. It's only the first blow. We're going to take many more blows to it, and then we're going to chuck it in the dustbin of history where it belongs. But this is the first major step in that direction, Rich.
Wow. No, I'm floored. I think you're being modest. I don't see it as just a small chip. I think it's a big blow, because I remember reading up on that during this time, and everything I saw led to this case allowed the government to do what they wanted to do, and it was very scary to me. And I thought, wow, how could they do that, right? And this was, everybody was hanging their hat on the Jacobson decision, and to hear that you're systemically taking it apart is good news. Folks, we're on with Leslie Manookian. She is the president and founder of the Health Freedom Defense Fund. Check them out at healthfreedomdefense.org. Leslie, in the half a minute that we have left, let everybody know how they can find you and how they can support your work.
Sounds great. Just so you know, we're the organization that stopped the federal travel mask mandate. So you don't wear a mask on a plane anymore because of us. We've won lots and lots of lawsuits. You can find us at healthfreedomdefense.org. You can sign up for our newsletter there. We send it about once every 2 weeks. You can become a member for $10, or you can donate if you choose. We've got tons of articles. You can follow all of our legal work that we do just to defend your rights. So we get to a point where everybody recognizes that bodily autonomy and medical freedom are a right that belongs to every single American. That's our goal.
And if you could, and this is just really for my own selfish benefit, but how does a Wall Street person like you end up running this big legal organization that advocates, against the government telling you what to do health-wise?
You know what happened? I was responsible for deciding which European stocks would go into our portfolios. I met with CEOs and their whole management teams every day. That's the kind of work that I did, okay? And I had the CEO of one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world come into my office and say, listen, this new drug, our new blockbuster drug, it's going to kill a few people. The bad news is the FDA is going to make us put a black box warning on the packaging. The good news is we'll still do $7 billion in peak sales. And I thought to myself, good Lord, I am playing for the wrong team. These people are going to kill people. They know it, and they think I'm happy because the stock that we own is going to go up. And I just said, it opened my eyes. Yeah. It ripped the veil from my eyes. I started to realize that I was playing for the wrong side, and that I was going to use my talents, my skills, my education for the betterment of humanity. So I quit.
Wow. Well, Leslie Manookian, I want to thank you for being here. Great story. I can't wait to chat with you again. Folks, check out the website, healthfreedomdefense.org. Leslie, you are a gentlewoman, a scholar, and a patriot, and I thank you for staying up late with us.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, familia, welcome back. Amigos, we're about to kick off Open Phone America in a little bit. I can't wait for you to join us for that. You know the number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. We're going to take a little time to give a hat tip to Willie Mays, his career. And he was on this program with my predecessor's predecessor, and I think we got some archive tape for you that's coming up straight ahead. So don't move a muscle. Keep it locked right here. Again, the number 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. Don't go anywhere. Open Phone America starts right now.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, Here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to hour number 3 of our Tuesday night program. Happy to be here with you. Our phone number, if you want to join our late night national town hall conversation, 833-4825-337-833-4-Valdez is the phone number. And we've been discussing a lot of the news that's going on today. Joe Biden announced a series of protections for illegal aliens. Mainly, what I estimate is going to promote lots of people getting married, lots of people going to the chapel, because he's cut out the part where you had to go back home to reapply for a visa to come back. So that's, I think, going to be a huge opening for lots of people that are going to quickly get married to take advantage of this loophole that Joe Biden has created. Let's see, what else do we have here? We talked about that. We talked about there's a very unfortunate story that has somewhat of a just ending about a young lady who was sexually assaulted in New York. We'll get to that in a little bit. But I wanted to start off with taking a moment to remember baseball legend Willie Mays, right? Willie Mays, iconic Hall of Fame center fielder who was known as the greatest all-around baseball player of all time. He died today, Tuesday, and this was announced by the San Francisco Giants. He was 93 years old. Mays was nicknamed the Say Hey Kid, and he had a professional baseball career that spanned 4 decades, beginning with the Negro Leagues in the late 1940s and ending with the New York Mets in 1972. Now, in between, he spent 21 years with the New York Giants, who would later move to San Francisco. Mays was born a day after me and a bunch of years earlier, May 6, 1931, in Westfield, Alabama. And his birth name is Willie, not William. Both his parents were very talented athletes, but his father was the one who introduced him to baseball. So my hat is off to Willie Mays. May he rest in peace. And what's cool about Willie Mays is that not only was he a legendary Hall of Fame player, right, baseball legend, but he also was interviewed on this program by my predecessor's predecessor, the late, great Larry King. And they had a couple of conversations that we have an archived tape of. But we're going to start off with Larry asking Willie Mays about the rivalry between the Brooklyn Dodgers and, back then, the New York baseball Giants. Listen to this.
Nothing like the rivalry, right?
Oh, no. All I can say to her, it was
it was hatred, wasn't it?
It was a fighting game.
Come on, you hated us, didn't you?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, you hated
guys,
us,
man. My best friend was Junior Gillum. He only knocked 4 of my teeth out at one time.
When the Dodgers would play the Giants, if you were a kid in Brooklyn and there was a night game coming, let's say Friday night, right?
Yeah, Friday night.
All day long, there's nothing you could think about but that game.
Well,
nothing. If you lived in Brooklyn, you thought, I remember we'd go to the Polo Grounds just to see what the Dodgers looked, what our gray uniforms looked like, because we never got to see them on the road.
Yeah.
And they'd go to the Polo Grounds, and it was hatred. I mean, there was hatred. Did the players feel that way?
No, we didn't feel that way. We only felt that way on the field.
Oh, but on the field, there was
on the
intense.
field, I would try and kick him in the head all the time. Like I say, I had a bet with Campy. I could steal 3 bases off of him any time during the year. I never got to 3 bases. He always pitched out or he threw me out. And I always said, okay, I'm going to buy you dinner. Are you going to buy me a dinner? Junior Gillum was my best friend. I told you I was stealing one day, and he hit me in the mouth, and he started laughing. And so I put all my I had 4 teeth on the ground down there. So when you talk about the Dodgers and Giant rivalry, on the field, we didn't have no friends. No friends. You're going to either get killed or you're going to hit somebody. It was that simple. It was that simple. It's that simple. You're going to either hit somebody or get killed. That's all.
The late, great Larry King and Willie Mays. Now, they continued that conversation with Larry asking Willie Mays about the best catch that he'd ever seen. Listen to this.
What was the best catch you ever saw?
The best catch I ever saw? Probably, I don't know, man, because I never seen catches. I never watched the game when I wasn't playing. You know,
No, I mean, what about in the dugout?
No, I don't. I was always down some. It didn't bother me when we hitting. When we
Wait a minute,
hitting,
you didn't watch?
No. I don't have time to watch. I don't want to watch it when I'm hitting, and when I'm on the field. I didn't have time. When my team is hitting, I don't worry about how they catch.
Well, where were you?
I was in the dugout. In our dugout, we had a downstairs there. I would go down there and just sit around. I didn't watch the game. No, I only watched the game when I didn't play, and I was in the bullpen, and I had to move the guys around. But when we on offense, what do I have to do? I didn't do anything. I just went down there and kept warm.
You knew what was happening, but you didn't watch every pitch.
No. I didn't even watch the catch. I didn't have time for all that. No. I know it sounds strange. I know it is.
Hey, I ain't going to argue.
Outstanding. Kudos to Willie Mays on an amazing career, an amazing life, an amazing legacy that he's left behind. And I'd like to, if you have any comments on that, we'll get to your calls momentarily. Otherwise, we're going to continue with the rest of the news of the evening. And a lot of people are very, very upset with Joe Biden because Joe Biden's not only announced that he was going to shut down the border and get all tough with everybody, but now today he is, in effect, granting amnesty to what he says is going to be 500,000 people, but in reality is likely going to be a lot more than 500,000 people, at least by my estimation, or I should say guesstimation. So we're going to do all of that and more coming up. Again, the phone number, if you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation, here's the number, 833-482-5337. The phone lines are open, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Look, the Statue of Liberty is not some relic of American history. It still stands for who we are. But I also refuse to believe that for us to continue to be America that embraces immigration, we have to give up securing our border. They're false choices. We can both secure the border and provide legal pathways to citizenship. But we have to acknowledge that the patience and goodwill of the American people is being tested by their fears at the border. They don't understand a lot of it. These are the fears my predecessor is trying to play on when he says immigrants, and his words are poison the blood of the country. When he calls immigrants, in his words, animals. When he was president, he separated families and children at the border. And now he's proposing to rip spouses and children from their families and homes and communities and place them in detention camps. He's actually saying these things. It's hard to believe it's being said, but he's actually saying these things out loud. And it's outrageous.
He's saying these things. He's saying them out loud. It's outrageous. That's Joe El Baboso Biden. And what he doesn't realize is that people don't like his policies on immigration, and that's why he's not winning. I don't understand how he doesn't get that. He should listen to this show for like a week straight, and I think he'd win the election. He'd figure out what everybody doesn't like about him, because apparently he's like inoculated from the criticism. Anyway, I want to get your take. He says that Americans are afraid of what his predecessor. I think Americans are in favor of what his predecessor did. I want to get your thoughts on this. Let's hit the phones, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. let us go to Super Talk WXRZ, Corinth, Mississippi, and check in with Gene. Hey, Gene, you're on with Rich Valdez. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
I just really want to make a comment. My wife and I were shopping in a town far from here. Went in the bathroom and couldn't get in the bathroom. People taking baths and cleaning and that type of thing, and it's really frustrating. And when we come out, we've seen a bus out in the parking lot and seen them all over town. They were just, for the lack of a better word, like ants. And I know that sounds cold, but that's just what you see, and we're just tired of it. He's got to stop these. We don't know these people.
You're talking about people coming from the southern border on a bus and ending up in your part of town.
Well, I don't know where they came from. All I know is there was a bunch on a bus and unloaded and going back to the bus from different, several places. The bus was centrally located. It was like, going back to that bus type thing. And it's frustrating.
How do you think we fix that problem, Gene?
Stop the border. I think they need to clear a path about, a half mile wide and put posts up and electrify it. I know it sounds cold, but do whatever you got to do to stop people from coming in our country.
Well, we've never had to electrify the fence or shoot anybody, and we've been able to keep the border relatively secure. I think the most secure the border's been was the 4 years that Trump was in office. So I would think that it would be a start to just allow the border agents to do their job, to actually enforce the law that we have, no?
I agree. I know that sounded, but, I guess we're just frustrated. Aggravated. We feel helpless. I wear a handgun and nervous all the time, because you just don't know, like those young ladies that was raped here recently. You don't know. You feel like you got to protect, and that's something when Trump was there, you really didn't have to worry about that kind of thing. You felt proud of your country.
Amen to that.
That seems to be fading. They can call me MAGA or call me whatever they want to. I'm a patriot. I love our country, and I'll defend it whatever it takes. To protect my family.
Gene, you're not alone. I think there's a lot of Americans just like you that love America, love their families. They want to feel safe. And many of them are black. Many of them are Hispanic. Many of them look like you, look like me. Most Americans, I've never met one that says they want to live in a place that is not safe. Yet you have Joe Biden saying that he's got 70% of the support of the people with these policies that are leaving the border wide open, that are now going to bring in, by his count, 500,000 people with the pathway to citizenship. And again, I'm not necessarily against any legal immigration and even reforming the system if it needs reforming. My issue really is terrorists and criminal aliens that are coming here to rape and pillage. Right? These are the people that I have a huge issue with. I really don't have an issue with somebody that wants to come here for a better life and is willing to go through the paperwork and the process. Godspeed. The issue becomes somebody that's going to come here and be a rapist when they're letting them out of mental institutions, when they're letting them out of jails, when they're sending people here that already have a criminal record in their home country, and then they get here and they've got 1, 2, 3 arrests in New York and end up somewhere in the central, in the interior central part of our country and continue to commit these types of crimes. That's unacceptable, right, Gene? We can't accept that, and that's why you feel nervous, because we all have a duty to not only to ourselves, but to our family, to our neighborhood, to make sure we do the best that we can, and that's something Joe Biden is definitely not doing. So I understand your frustration. Gene, who do you think wins in 2024? I'm pretty sure you're like me, hoping it's Trump, but what are your thoughts if the election were today?
There's no doubt I would vote for Trump. I don't agree with everything Mr. Trump says and does, that type of thing, but he's an excellent businessman, and I think he goes out of the box kind of thing, and sometimes that's what it takes to me. And I'm all for legal immigration, no problem at all with that. Go through the process. we got to stop letting thugs in, kind of thing.
Yep, I'm with you there.
And restore the hope. The hope. Trump, for the lack of a better word, is I think a lot of Republican or right or whatever you want to call, they see that hope in him. They see an everyday person. And when you look at Biden, to me, you don't see anybody at home.
Right. Yeah. No, we're knocking on the door and nobody's answering. So, Gene, what are your thoughts on people in your part of town in Corinth, Mississippi, WXRZ country? Are there a lot of Biden signs? Are there a lot of Biden supporters?
No, I don't see a lot of that. I have family that's Biden, marriage kind of thing. And it's scary. It really is scary. I want to say this too. And Joe Biden really scares me if he got elected again. But what really scares me worse is he got elected again and then died, and Kamala Harris became our president. That really scares me.
I call her "Que mala eres," which means how bad she is in Spanish. And you're right. Listen, this is the reason why I think they're floating Joe Biden around everywhere, and they have this old man that's clearly non-functioning, because they know the alternative is a guaranteed win. I think if you want to see Trump win in an absolute landslide, which he may very well do against Biden, but if you really want to see it, I think, like by 8:10, 8:12, 8:15 that night of election night when the polls close, put him against Kamala Harris. Because Kamala Harris, she's a disaster. The Democrats don't like her. Republicans don't like her. I don't know anybody that actually likes her. So I think you're spot on there, 100%. Gene, thanks for the call. Big shout out to everybody in Corinth, Mississippi, WXRZ Super Talk, 94.3. Good talking with you guys. And let me see. Well, we're going to continue. We got calls from Vermont, from Florida, and more coming in. Let me give you the number because there's not enough time for me to take a call before the break. 833-482-5337 is the phone number. 833-4-VALDEZ. Also, I want to encourage you guys, if you miss any portion of the program because perhaps maybe the station that carries the show doesn't carry all 3 hours or carries us on a delay, or you just hear something that you want to share with somebody and you go, man, I heard the most amazing interview on whatever topic and I want to share that, you can go over to our website, richvaldez.com. That's rich, VALDES.com. And every episode is on there. I think every show I've done, I think, is on there since the beginning of Rich Valdez America at Night. So you can get all the interviews there. You could listen to them absolutely free. You could also subscribe to the podcast, whether you use an Android phone, the Google phone, an iPhone, whatever kind of phone you have, you could do it there. If you use a computer, you could use that. Whatever you're using, we've got a way to get you the show and share it with the people that matter to you most. So go check out the website, richvaldezamericaatnight.com, and you can also just stream it live right from the website. All right, folks, the music means I have to go, and we're coming right back with your calls and more. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
In true New York fashion, a group of Queens residents came to the rescue for that 13-year-old girl when they found that suspect. Now, the NYPD says 25-year-old Christian Giovanni Engalandi crossed the Texas border illegally in 2021 coming from Ecuador. They also say he's charged with rape and a slew of other charges, and police add a violent is now off the streets.
Christian Giovanni Engalandi is walked out of the Queens Special Victims Squad in Forest Hills. Police say he is the man who raped a 13-year-old girl in Casina Park last week.
Rapist for you guys!
About 3 miles from the crime scene in Corona, residents there recognized him from the neighborhood. They say they all waited for him at this bodega on 108th Street where he often went before attacking him.
Boom. He comes, we caught him.
Spot him, got him.
We just happened to see the suspect, and we acted accordingly.
I need to do something because it's just not right, and I got 2 little sisters. I'm about to have a daughter, and that's just not right.
He a rapist!
Here, we found that the community was holding our perp. At the time, the community was trying to hold the perpetrator, waiting for the police. He fought with them, and the community still managed to hold on to him until we got there.
Police say tips came in through social media that mentioned his name and Facebook account, which had pictures of the same clothes he wore the day of the crime and had images of his tattoo. While in custody, Ingolandi also identified himself in video they showed him.
The perpetrator has made statements after waiving Miranda rights where he indicated that he has a drug problem, that he found the knife that he used to threaten the two teens, that this was the first time he had ever done anything like this.
The NYPD says he approached a 13-year-old girl and 13-year-old boy with a knife at around 3 p.m. on Thursday and forced them into the woods of Casina Park. He tied them up, raped the girl, and told them to stay there for 20 minutes before taking off with their cell phones. Angela Soretti says as a woman, hearing the traumatizing story, she was triggered, and her first instinct was to attack.
He was like, let me explain. There was nothing to explain, because at the end of the day, what is there to explain? He was more so like trying to get forgiveness from us, but it was no forgiveness to be given. Do you understand?
God bless these people. And you heard little bits of people that were there from the community, right? There's a number of people. There's a guy, I think a Dominican guy, that helped to hold him down. I think we have a clip of this. And I want to play it for you because I think it adds context to the story. Listen to this.
¿Dónde tú te vas? ¿A dónde tú te vas? Aquí voy a esperar. Oh, okay. ¿Dónde tú te vas? He a rapist. He don't care. He don't care that he hit the third. He right there. He hiding because we beat the out of him. Yeah.
Rapist.
Citizen app, baby. Thank you. Yeah, we did your job for you. He's right there. Look at him right there. We beat his ass.
Where my 10,000? Where my 10,000?
We beat his ass. Beat his ass. Beat his ass.
Those are, again, folks in the community. Let me tell you first, this rapist must have a purpose from God to live. I can't imagine how he escaped at least a brutal beating. He didn't get a brutal beating. They held him down. They were rough. He fought. They fought back. I saw the video of him afterwards. He got up. He was standing on his own, too. He was not bleeding. For all intent and purpose, they gave him the white glove treatment, something he did not give that 13-year-old girl. So I have to say, the compassion that was shown by the folks in the community was, I don't know what word to use, but you find the superlative of that word, and it's that. It was, give me Trump here, right? Yeah, it was huge. It was huge. It really was. I can't imagine. I really can't. I can't imagine how you catch someone that raped a 13-year-old girl at knife point, and the little boy, right? There are 2 of them. He didn't rape the boy, but he held them there. Raped this girl. Again, now, rape I find to be extraordinarily egregious because it's not just the forceful entry, but the whole idea behind it. You have here a child, 13-year-old child, that is clearly either screaming, saying no, or stiff as a board from fear. And somehow this man manages to make himself erect to do what he has to do, right? To do what he did. It sickens me. It sickens me. And to think that men in this community caught him, I applaud these men for their restraint. I applaud these men for doing the right thing. And this man needs to thank God that he's alive and that this wasn't worse for him. Because it really, in my opinion, could have been and should have been. This isn't something you do. And when you catch someone like this, I think it's only fair that an example is made. And yes, I'm not calling for vigilante justice. I'm just saying, I guess he was very cautious in the way he fought, so that they were appropriate in their fighting back to restrain him. And I guess he did a lot of begging for his life that tried to gain their sympathy. Because I think had the girl's family, her father, I can tell you if this was my child, we'd have a different issue, right? I think any dad in their right mind would. And this happened. There was a case not long ago in the Midwest. Guy came home and caught a man raping his son, and it was the son that saved the guy's life. And when the guy did the news interview, he said, I only stopped beating this man because my son begged me to stop, and my son saved his life. He said, I had every intention of killing him. And how do you stop a dad that's enraged trying to, avenge what happened to his child? And the rage that you see when someone in your family is attacked in such a violent manner. So I say the police have their work cut out for them. They've been walking this guy around all day. I didn't even see a black eye on his face. And all I could say is I think he's getting off light. I hope the justice system does the right thing because the people were extraordinarily fair. Let's see. Let's get to Walter, St. Augustine, Florida, WFOY. Walter, what say you, sir?
Hola de nuevo, Rich.
How are you?
Two things. Good. Thank you. Two things. Great job today finding the murderer by those heroes in NYPD of that poor 13-year-old girl in New York. So I applaud them also. I mean, you can't applaud Biden. That's like one hand clapping.
Oh.
But anyway, Rich, you mentioned that your brother was NYPD?
Two of my brothers retired now.
Oh, okay. So just quickly, people don't realize what it takes to get on the job. I mean, you got to pass the test with a high score like 99 out of 100. You got to pass the physical, which is no joke. You got to pass the psychological, 700 questions. You got to pass the interviews. There's like 5 of those. And you got to graduate the academy. And then all the prejudice of getting on any assignments, you got to pass that, I guess you can say.
Yeah. Let me tell you, not to brag, but since we have a second and you brought it up, both my brothers are really, really good cops. My brother John was a sergeant of detectives, and he typically led a task force, a joint task force. So at first it was the ATF, so anything involving alcohol, tobacco, firearms. Then it was the joint task force for the DEA, and then ultimately the JTTF, which was with the FBI. And he did that for all of his career, leading raids and getting into plenty of shootouts, not just one or two. He had a very active career. My brother Al was a major case homicide detective who worked on cases so big he would actually fly to Tokyo on one case to interview witnesses. So they really did have good careers. And you're right, there are a lot of really, really talented, very, very dedicated men and women on the job, NYPD, and they should be applauded. And it's a different time now because the Democrats have changed the rules. Governor Cuomo, when he was governor, signed the no cash bail law into existence. And this, in effect, Walter, as you probably know, really neutered the cash bail system throughout the state. But also the way it affected NYPD in particular was that the cops just were kind of left with very little option because they would lock somebody up and they would be on the street an hour later. What gets worse when you add insult to injury is now you're stuck with a thing after George Floyd, when they actually after Eric Garner, where they outlawed any type of headlock or chokehold, and now you can't even bring people down by grabbing them above the shoulders. Or when they're on the ground, you can't put your knee directly in their back. So it's very hard to keep them down once they're down. It's hard to take them down because of the way they've changed the tactics. So very difficult to do the job today as opposed to the way it once was, Walter.
Yeah, well, I give my thanks to your brothers through you, and we need more like them, and I guess more Bo Deedles too.
Yeah, I like him. And let me ask you a question. With respect to this rapist, Do you feel that the community took it easy on him, or is that just me?
Did they take it too easy on him?
Yeah.
I didn't get it. No,
he was able to walk away.
Yeah, just enough to walk away. That's would have been the best thing. You know,
I think that's what he got.
do?
And I'm not saying they should have done more. I'm just saying I'm surprised that they didn't do more because of how outrageous it was. And it shows you how just people really are and how unjust others can be. Folks, we're coming right back with the rest of your calls. Vermont, South Dakota, and more. 833-4-VALDEZ, 833-482-5337.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
I also know many people in this room also had concerns about the steps I'd taken. I heard and respected from many of you and many people behind me of the concerns you felt as president I had to take these actions. Every nation must secure its borders, just that simple. And if Trump and the Republicans wouldn't do it, working with me, then I would do it on my own, and I did. At the time I took these steps to secure the border, I also said that I would move to fix problems that made our immigration system unfair, unjust, and provisions that simply made it no sense at all. Specifically, steps that will be good for dreamers, married couples, and for Americans. That's why we're here today.
That is Joel Baboso Biden at the White House discussing how he secured the border on his own. To that I say, 3.5 years too late, sir. And did he really do it? I want to get your thoughts on this. Let's go to Burlington, Vermont, WVMT, and check in with John. John, go right ahead.
Good evening, Rich. A great program tonight. I don't always agree with you on many topics, but I do listen to you, and I hope that many of your listeners will listen to other programs hosted by people who they may not agree with.
I agree with that, too.
I love my country as much as you do, and as much as any of your your listeners. And I have served my country proudly, and I'm glad
thank you for your service.
In that regard, though, there is no doubt that we are not a racist country. You know, the two themes I've heard tonight was racism and Willie Mays. Now, let's go to Willie Mays for just a minute. I'm older than you. I remember when Willie Mays played, and he's probably one of the 5 best baseball players of all time. Unfortunately, he and Hank Aaron and Jackie Robinson and all of the black athletes of his generation, when they would go in the South to play baseball, they couldn't stay in the same hotel as the other players because of their race. So, again, we are not a racist country, but there is a lot of racism in this country. There was back in the 50s. There is still today. And part of that, I think, unfortunately, you demonstrated some of that this evening. When you take one individual...
I demonstrated racism?
Yeah, exactly, yes. And I will, if you let me, I will explain that, okay? When you take a group of people and then you single out one individual who does a horrific crime, you keep emphasizing that this person is an illegal immigrant, what you're doing is you're setting up a situation where everyone who is in a similar position is being found guilty by association. And that is very unfortunate. You could do a whole program on people named Smith or O'Brien or Lefebvre, French Canadians, Irish. You take any nationality. There are thousands of crimes committing every day. but yet you spend a good portion of your time focusing on one particular incident, which is very unfortunate. But what many of your listeners do is they hear that and then they transfer that to all of the other people of that category. I meant to call you about President Biden's executive order originally. That was the call.
Sure.
And, you know, I think you were a little misleading in what you said in the first hour when you said that Joe Biden is losing the black vote. He is not getting the same black vote right now, according to the polls, that he did 4 years ago.
If you make $100,000 a year and you make $70,000 the following year, are you losing money?
I'm saying in terms of
you are.
Still getting,
so, yes, he's losing the black vote. Does that mean he's going to lose the entirety of the black vote when it comes time to Election Day? I don't know. I would presume not. I would think if 90% of blacks vote, black Democrats vote with Biden, and he gets only 75%, and that 15% jumps ship for Trump, I would say it's a significant victory for Trump in gaining that 15% and a significant loss for Biden. Of course, we could split hairs and say, oh, but he still won 75% of the black vote. Sure. But if you make that type of impact every election and you get 90% of the vote and it starts to dwindle to 80, to 75, to 65, then clearly you're at a loss. And that's the point that I'm making. I don't think it's misleading. I think it's fair. Something else that you said about pointing out the illegality of illegal immigrants. I pointed out because it's unnecessary. We can have rapes committed by all sorts of Americans that are here, and I don't condone those. But I will say crime happens, and I understand that. I can't accept the fact that the president opens up the back door, lets people in, and then they come here and rape our children. That's not acceptable. It should never happen. John, thank you for your call. I got to take a break. We'll be right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And again, I want to thank John from Vermont. I always appreciate an opinion that is different than mine. I always do. And I just had to go quickly because we had to take that break. But yeah, I don't believe that it was me that was misrepresenting what was going on with the black vote. I think it was Harry Enton from CNN because we played audio from him yesterday of him saying how stunned and shocked he was and that this, I think the word he used is that Trump is careening towards picking up the largest amount of black voters or any Republicans ever gotten. And I think those are Harry Enton's words. He's the data analyst from CNN, and we played a clip of him on CNN saying such. Anyway, the other stuff that John mentioned with respect to my racism, I think I explained that already. Let's go to Andrew, Sebring, Florida, WWTK, quickly.
Hey, I just wanted to say, if that guy walked away from that mob, definitely got off too easy, as compared to back home in Jamaica, where we caught a guy in an open air market that we have with a little boy. It's either to tie the guy down, boil a cauldron of water, and pour it on the guy. And wow. I witnessed that right there. Yeah, that guy got off easy.
Boiling water on a child rapist. Sounds like a fair punishment in Jamaica, right? You can't do that in the United States. But I hear you, brother. Andrew in Sebring, Florida, WWTK, thank you. America, good night. God bless. Hasta la próxima. I will be back with you tomorrow, God willing. Until then, keep listening to this radio station because there's a great show following mine. Don't go anywhere. I'll be back tomorrow.